Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inspiring Women Revolution. I am your host, Ari Zucker, and I am so thrilled to introduce our next guest today. It is my big brother, Todd Zucker, and he has written not just one, but two books. He just finished his second book, and we are going to talk all about it today, how he got to start, all those exciting things. So please help me welcome my big brother, Todd Zucker. Well, hello, big brother, much older brother.
Yeah, I'm not feeling the whole much older thing.
You're
I'm
not
not
much
that
older than me.
much older. Couple
No.
years here and there, give or take.
Well, I will say my amazing brother.
Oh, thank you, sis.
Yes,
I,
yes.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am so thrilled to have you here. I'm so excited for our listeners to hear a lot about you because there's so many wonderful things that you do. You're an amazing man, but also all the things you do for yourself and for your environment and for women around you. So you're an amazing father. You're an amazing husband. I'm really happy to have you here again. It's been, I think, a year and a half since the last
Yeah.
time you were on Everything from A to Z.
Yeah, I guess I must have really screwed up. It took me a year and a half to get back.
Well, I was making some changes and, went with this Inspiring Women Revolution, which you and I could probably go off on a tangent about how inspiring each other and right now in this time, but that'll be a different podcast, is
In
really,
a year
really
and a half,
needed.
a year and a half, I'll
No,
put on my calendar.
no, this one's going to be a week and a half, I think. But really, today we are here to talk about you. And you always tell me how proud you are of me.
I am.
Well, I am here to say how proud I am of you. You have not just one, but two books out, novels out, and one of them being the Sentinels of Atlantis. Sentinels, not the, right? Sentinels of Atlantis
That's correct.
and Heir of Atlantis.
Correct.
And before we get into that, I just want to say writing number one is, I feel like, especially when you're in the creative side of your entrepreneurial side of you, or of anyone, writing, I feel like, is one of the hardest things to do, whether you're a songwriter, a theatrical writer, a book writer, because you start the story for everyone else, for the actor, for the writer, for the lighting, for the crew, for everything you do. We have to have something in order to
Yeah.
start our imagination and the colors and everything that you visually see.
Right.
So I'm complimenting you on the fact that you do that. Number one, your day job is you are a principal of a middle school, which, by the way, congratulations, is you do impressive things and you leave a really wonderful impression on many children, which is kudos to you. We love our teachers here on the show. And then at night, you are a writer. And somewhere in between there, you're a softball coach, baseball coach, pitcher coach, and in between. So share
Gotta
a
keep
little
busy.
bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, share a little bit about your sort of your day real quick, and then we'll jump into your books.
So yeah, no, thank you. And again, I appreciate being on here, and I appreciate the kind words. I'm very fortunate to have the relationship I do with my sister. So I love that. Um, Being a principal of any administrator in any school nowadays, it comes with there's a lot of stress, I guess, and you just have to understand where we're at in society. People seem to be a lot more angry now than they were when I first got into administration almost 2 decades ago. I guess maybe I am the older brother.
Yeah,
But yeah,
not that much older.
been almost 20. Yeah, been almost 20 years in administration, and you know, with the pandemic and the polarized country we've had, just people are much more on edge, and so we're starting to see a lot of that in our kids, and trying to keep them in that lane of focusing on their education, focusing on their future, trying to get them to understand how important their future is while combating social media and combating, family issues. And a lot of our kids come from very troubled families. And it's a challenge trying to keep them on the straight line, not get frustrated with their behavior, but also hold them accountable for their behavior. And all the while help educate them so that they can move out of that cycle that they're in. And so I spend a good portion of my day, trying to work with kids, build rapport with them, keep my teachers sane, keep my staff sane, Try to, meet the almighty federal and state guidelines of testing that they want, so so I can keep my job, to keep doing the things that I think are productive. um, and then after that, during the spring, I'm a hitting and catching coach for a varsity softball team, in which just finished second in state. So that was a great time that we had.
Congratulations.
And
So exciting.
I get the I get the fortune of being able to coach with your niece and my daughter, who's our pitching coach. So that's been an amazing, fun thing to do. And then, I'm just try to have a little fun with the family, and then figure out different ways we can help our help the kids in our community. I just feel like that's a big key to help heal what is a hurting nation right now, is get our kids going in the right direction. And by
Yeah.
no means am I, I'm not one of those soft hearted. You'll be the first to attest. I am not the soft hearted one. My kids will tell you, if they need a soft shoulder to cry on, they go to mom. If they need someone to tell them to pull their head out of their butt, they come to dad. But within that, I do try to understand where people are at and help guide them, but in the right direction.
Well, I think we all need to go back to a little more strength, which I'm sure you can agree. And
Yep.
not, it's one of the things that I talk about on this show is we don't cancel here. People have an opinions, and it's okay to have one, no matter where you are, and whether you're transitioning, whether you're uh, going through tough times, whether you're a fantastically rich and wealthy person. Everybody has the right to have an opinion and actually have an open conversation about it. And so I feel like you have one of the tougher jobs, and just coming off the Robb Elementary School, situation. You have a very, very, there's a lot of finger pointing, but we really coming up with solutions is really the key, is what is, and that's the
Right.
hardest part, is instead of let's pointing fingers, how do we come up with solution oriented things? And I think you do that a lot in your schools, and you're in Idaho. So
Yeah.
it's a different state. You don't hear a lot
It,
about things in
it
Idaho.
is. It is. But actually, half of California, I think, has moved out here. So it's
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
Well,
getting I'm getting my native population coming out this way. Because when we moved out for the wide open spaces and the mountains and the hiking and all that. And now we're looking a lot like LA again. So,
yeah.
but it's one of those things where I just wish they would. I know they can't, but working in the trenches, being in schools, putting politics in front of everything, whatever side of the line you're on, or if you're in the middle as an independent, you kind of have agreements on both sides of that aisle. They bring politics into schools, and we become this political football. And all we're trying to do is help these kids get their education. We're portrayed as every teacher has this agenda, and they're, whether it's teaching CRT, or whether it's you know not not supporting kids who are trying to figure out where they're at in life. And it's just, people are just so uninformed about how hard teachers work. And I mean, I am so thankful my staff gets to go on summer break, because truly, and it may sound bad, but they need a break from other people's kids, because you're trying to not only raise their own, but they're trying to help raise other kids. And it is a challenge. It's a huge challenge.
I definitely think y'all don't get paid enough.
Now,
It's like a surgeon.
we work. And here's the funny thing. There's not a teacher in my building, not a member of my staff, and in all my years of teaching, they're not in it for the money.
Yeah.
They truly want to see kids go. And do we have bad apples? Heck yeah, we do. Every profession, it
Yes.
doesn't matter where you're at. There are bad apples. And unfortunately, nowadays it's all about exploiting the bad apples instead of really understanding the good. I mean, you watch that with police. Police get such a bad rap. I work with them on a daily basis because we have an SRO. They're phenomenal people. They're family people. They're not the way that they're portrayed. And yet teachers are in that same boat now, because some people disagree with some things that are out there, and they put it on the whole profession. And then people like me have to run interference, and I'm going to protect my staff, because I got to take care of them so they can take care of the kids and help them, again, ultimately succeed in their future.
Yeah, it's interesting that what's lacking is people being interested in other people's stories until it's so extremely tragic, like we've just had to go through. It's so extremely tragic. That's when people start to come together. But even then, now we're starting to see we're using it for finger pointing, and it is a really, you're in a really tough position. So our hearts break for the tragedies, but getting to know your teachers and getting to know your officers and getting to know the people that serve. I mean, really, we are of service. I'm not a teacher, but I am a life coach, so I am of service as well. You try to help others and you try to create a healthy, safe community. And my goal here and your goal for your day job and what you do is to really try to connect people again and get them to reach deep down and go, wait, what happened to our community, and let's create that. And I think that's a huge goal. And I know we can talk about this for a really long time, and we'll do that on another
We
show. But
will. I will just say one last thing just to give a little food for thought.
sure.
When I first took over my building, the first thing we did is we banned cell phones during the school day. I'm
Hmm.
telling you, that was a difference maker. Our kids, especially at the middle school age and younger, just so parents who might be listening understand, it is such a dangerous device for kids, especially if it goes unchecked. I mean, if it's monitored and all that, that's one thing, but what you have no idea what your kids are exposed to, and the things that I deal with and I see. And we're a fairly conservative state, and yet I still see the things that I have had to deal with. I think to myself, I thank God every day. I grew up in the Jurassic era, and we didn't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Um, and I highly encourage parents to really stay monitored on what your kids are on, because I tell you what, we have kids that are living entirely separate lives from what their parents know of.
Hmm.
And I grew up in an era where privacy was, however far the telephone extension cord could go from the kitchen into the living room.
Yep.
That was our privacy. Nowadays, these kids have totally separate things going on. So I just encourage parents to be vigilant and really monitor what your kids are doing, because there's a lot of danger on that little box. Which that's why we don't let them on it during the day.
No, it's really, really healthy advice for sure. I think a lot of adults can withstand
That's
not
that's a
being
whole other
on our
issue.
phones. I mean, there's a time of day where I literally don't look at it anymore. And I'm sorry I didn't text you back, but I'm out. I'm done. I need it. I need to go for a walk and I need to take 2 hours away from it.
Or you can read a book like The Heir of
Yeah.
Atlantis.
Oh, look how beautiful that cover is. Okay, wait. All right. So let's get into The Heir of Atlantis. Look at this, your second book. So I'm in the middle of reading this book. And it is so amazing. And I love the first one, but you're really getting into the richness too of book number two. So you have to read book number one. First of all, you've got to read the first book. Get all the characters
Available on
and
Amazon.
available on Amazon. And it's again, the first book, Sentinels of Atlantis. And now your new one, which I'm so excited about, is Heir of Atlantis. So you have done some incredible things. I remember as a little kid just looking up at you and thinking you're so amazing. And I always remember, I feel like you started writing Twilight Zones first. Was that
Yeah,
your,
yeah, they were
like,
kind
your
of like, yeah,
big?
they're like, yep. That was my little, I'm a science fiction nerd, and I love just storytelling, and so Twilight Zone always intrigued me because it always had twists, and
Yes.
and I love those twists. So yeah, I'd write little short stories that kind of mimicked those kind of stories.
And you are a history buff.
I'm a
Your
recovering
favorite
history
subject?
teacher. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Recovering history teacher. Is that what you said?
Yep.
And history is fascinating. I love that your youngest niece or your only niece is following in your footsteps as far as she's a history lover, history
So
buff.
proud.
So proud. So is that what drove you? Now, obviously, the name of the book has Atlantis in it.
Yep.
So anyone who's ever known or understood or read about Atlantis I mean, what got you so excited about the history of
Yeah.
it?
So again, from an early age, I've loved history. I've loved ancient history. Just the stories from the past. Whether it was the Greeks and the city states, the warring between Athens and Sparta, and then the war with the Trojan War, and then Crete and Mycenaeans and I mean all these ancient civilizations and the mark that they've left on our society, and so I really found incredible interest in them. And then the stories and the legends, and then I started reading mythology and just how the creativity and how these these ancient folks started to um, look at the world around them, and then the way they explained why things were the way they were, and created these incredible stories. But all looking at all these different cultures, and they have similar stories intermeshed in them. You always wonder, well, was it real? And those mysteries. I mean, who doesn't like a good mystery? You
Oh,
know,
love a good
um,
mystery.
and so Atlantis is one of the greatest of all time. And you look at people have gotten, I mean, traveled the world looking for where Atlantis could be, and did it exist, and could it be were they talking about this civilization or that civilization? And so I always found it intriguing. I love the whole Olympian pantheon of the gods, and what they controlled, and the warring that went on between them. And I mean, Zeus was a male hoe, but he was spreading his seed all over the place. And how they just how the Greeks envisioned what happened, and that went into more into Norse mythology, and how we still every day, well, every week, we experience Norse mythology, just the names of the day. You have
Mm.
Wednesday, which was originally Odin's day, and Thursday, Thor's day. Friday is Freya's day. So their cultures are intertwined with ours. And I always found it fascinating. But Atlantis was just that one. Did it exist, and where was it? And I want to be the one to find it, so I can get a really cool show like Josh Gates,
Yeah.
my TV
Yeah.
hero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when you decided to write your first book,
Mhm.
what inspired you to go, you know what, I'm finally going to put this
My
pen to paper?
my three girls. We started off. I used to read whether it was The Hobbit, whether it's Lord of the Rings, or I'd read or Harry Potter, and I'd start reading these stories, and I used to use different accents for each character, and then over time, after reading those, I'd start making up fun stories with my three little princesses in there and whatnot. And I think we were going on vacation one day. We were on a long drive, and we were just talking about stories, and started talking about Atlantis. And I don't know, it just morphed. And I just started thinking, all right, I want to tie in some cool mysteries. So I tied in the Bermuda Triangle with Atlantis. I wanted to bring it into modern day, and Sentinels actually takes place in fairly modern day times, and it's a take on what actually happened to it, who the Olympians really were, and then intertwining a modern day protagonist in Drake Mallory, who ends up in Atlantis, which turned out to be a subcontinent created by Poseidon, who was an Olympian. Then they were advanced science research team, and he had this vision of making Earth a place to hide from the Titans, who were their kind of mortal enemy. And I kind of explain how that all comes about. So I tried to tie in uh, Greek mythology, but into more of a science fiction type um, storyline,
Ah,
and why Zeus destroyed Atlantis, and how Poseidon saved Atlantis, and how King Atlas, who was original, who was the first king of Atlantis, how he saved his people and went on to legendary status. Anyway, and then it comes full circle, and it ends up did Atlantis exist? It's survived in this subterranean continent under the Atlantic, and then there's a political intrigue and a twin brother of the king who tries to replace the king with himself and rule, because he has this belief that Atlantis needs to return to the surface and conquer their weaker Terran cousins. And so Drake he figures it out and has to work his way through of how to try to stop this plot. And in the end of Sentinels, I don't want to give away because you got to read it, but
yeah.
he fails. He fails in the coup, but he manages to escape, and it's who he escapes with. And then Heir of Atlantis is all about returning the young prince that he had escaped with 13 years later, why he has to return for the safety of the Heir of Atlantis, and their adventure getting back into Atlantis, and then how they overcome or try to overcome the situation Atlantis is in. Because if they don't, old the king's brother, he is going to come back to the surface, and we're not going to fare too well against him. So saving
Amazing.
2 worlds, not just one.
So how many characters do you have in each book?
Here's the funny part. So I was very much inspired by Clive Cussler. He writes a lot of great adventure books, and what I've always loved about him, he does this. He ties in historical events, and then creates a story around them. And so, in the prologue of Sentinels of Atlantis, we actually began talking about how and why the city was destroyed. So it takes place then, and then the prologue then jumps to modern times. And so I've got characters from that period. Then I've got characters that come in on the modern side. I mean, there's, I don't know, 20 something characters in Sentinels. And then I've brought some back, added others in the Heir of Atlantis, and really tried to make them as rich as possible. I mean, you only have so much you can do to get in depth, but I really tried to bring some personality and understanding where they're coming from. I mean, my main antagonist, Dargon, he is the bad guy, but I try to get you to understand why he is the way he is, why he believes the way he believes. And, you know, is he a little maniacal? Yes, but, you know, he is also feeling like he needs to make Atlantis a resurgent power again, you know, and with him leading it, of course. So there's the narcissism, but he has his reasons, you know, and so I try to build those kind of stories within the story, within the characters, and then explain as best I can how things came to be at that time. I know when I watch or read science fiction or stories, you know, there's always easy to poke holes in it because, oh wow, I love this. How come they could do this?
Yeah.
And I know they're in my books, but I try to close as many of those holes and at least answer them, or give some sort of explanation to it within the story, and not have it too verbose to where you can't you get lost in the explanations, and then you kind of forget why you're
Telling the story. Yeah. Yeah. So what is it like to go through the character development process?
So it's really funny. So I had a base idea of the type of characters I wanted, you know, and a lot of it just comes from my own, the guys I always found interesting, or the female characters who I always felt were bold and strong, or they were very they were compassionate, and you could feel that through the writing. So I tried to look at characters and build them in a way that you can relate to them, or you can understand how they're at. I had some characters. There's a character I started writing in the Sentinels of Atlantis, and he was just supposed to be a small blurb, and by the time I got done writing him, and he wasn't even a live character, he ended up being, it's even hard to explain, but King Atlas, when he saved Atlantis the first time, a part of him ended up in the computer system of New Atlantis. And I started writing him a little bit, and then as I developed the character, he became this huge major component, and even more so in the Heir of Atlantis. And I had no intention of making him that big of a character. So you start out and you write what you think is going to be a good part of your character base, but then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this really fits well, and this character could really help the story if they did this. And the next thing you know, wow, I really need him. I need him down the road too.
Right. So it's sort of really left up. I mean, you know, if I write blogs and things like that, which is, you know, I know how many words that I need to write, and I know how many paragraphs that is, and I can, now I'm kind of programmed in my brain how to do it. But even in a very 500 to 700 word blog, you can have a brain fart, and especially when you're writing a book. How many of those have you had where you're sitting there and you're blanking out?
So writing is a joy when you're doing it. The challenge of writing is when you're not inspired. When you get that, that writer's block or that brain freeze, it's okay. Here's where I'm at. I tried to outline out a general idea of how I want the story to go.
Okay.
A lot of times, I'm gonna give out my writing trade secret here.
Oh, good. I was actually going to ask, what is your writing process? Take two. We had to move locations. Back to our question of when you get a block, right?
Yeah.
A writer's block.
You get a block. Yeah. So when you're trying to figure out where you want to take the story, where you want to get a direction. I always try to give an outline to myself of how I want the story to unfold. And then I just kind of cut loose. So I was telling you my little trade secret, which is probably not that much of a secret, but it's my embracing my inner sci-fi nerd, is I have downloaded dozens, maybe hundreds by now, of movie themes, like, whether it's Star Wars and the music. I mean, let's face it, John Williams is a hell of a composer. So it's, so I play them, and I just kind of try to imagine my character in whatever situation that I'm envisioning they're in. And much like I froze a bit ago in my mind, that scene is frozen, and hopefully that I use the music to try to kind of help. Okay, and how can I get him out of this, or what could make this more realistic, or how can what can they say or do that'll get them to where we need them to go to that next phase. Mm-hmm. And so I try to use that. Most times it works. Sometimes I just need to walk away for a bit. And sometimes it's a couple days. There was a time it was a couple months, because I got into softball season. We had a really good run, and I was so exhausted. Every night I came home from practice, I tried to write, and I'm like, nope. I'm just going to put it away. So.
Falling asleep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And, and there are only so many hours in the day. I mean, if it's your full-time job to try and write, then, that probably can be even more frustrating. I feel like when you have a chance to get up, go for a run, and like you said, put on something that is inspiring for you. I still love, like, when I get stuck or lost, or when I'm memorizing lines from my other job, I will put on Now We Are Free from Gladiators. Gladiator. I love that.
That's on my soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's on my soundtrack.
It's good, right? There is a frequency in that song that just completely touches my brain and is like, here you go. Feel inspired. I'm like, oh, that. And I love when I need to be awe-inspired, I love Florida Georgia Line's Holy.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, it's really good.
I can't do anything that has words in it for me.
Yeah. That's more like on a jog or a run or something, but
yeah, because the words then mix up the words I'm trying to get put down on on paper.
So if you had words for an inspiring writer who may get in frustrating positions in their life, let's say, regardless if you're writing a book, and we'll go with someone who's writing a book right now. I mean, how do you even start with a story arc? I mean, do you write out an outline, or do you just kind of create and hope for the best?
So what one would hope, if you've got you've got to have some passion and thought to want to commit, number one, to sit down and start writing a book. So I'd be hard pressed to think that you don't have an idea what you want that story to be, even if it's just the opening scene of it. I mean, or maybe it's something that's in the middle or the end. You want, God, this would be a great ending to a story, and then you back plan how to get there. But like anything in life, you've got to have some sort of plan.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you write a couple ideas down on a napkin, I mean, heck, it worked for Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah.
That thing endures forever. Sorry, history geek again. But you have to, if you have an idea, get that idea down. And then like I said, for me personally, I like a little bit of an outline, even if it's just bullet points of kind of where you want it to go and how, how you want it to look. And sometimes it takes a while just to get that outline down. But I will say, once the outline's done, boy, for me, especially when I have those times where I'm struggling a bit, I go read through that again. And then it reminds me, maybe it's a chapter I'm working about. Maybe it's like 2 chapters down the road where I want it to go. And then something will click. Oh yeah, that's how I can get there. Cause I need to get there. So how can I get here? And then don't be afraid to move chapters around, and don't be afraid to make changes. It's not like, this isn't the commandments. Just have flexibility and enjoy. I think the biggest thing is enjoy the adventure,
Mm,
enjoy the telling the story. Because if you if you don't, if you're writing because you're under pressure because a publisher gave you a bunch of money and you got to do it, I can see that. Which, by the way, if there's any publishers out there who want to pay me to write a book, I'm all in. You just let me know, I'm there.
that's
But
right. That's right. Check your books out on Amazon.
that's
Amazon.
right. But if you're doing it because it's something, like for me, it was a bucket list. I just wanted to have it. Yeah, I wanted to write a book. I just thought that would be a cool thing. Um, give yourself a lot of grace,
Mm,
and don't give yourself a time limit. Don't put pressure on yourself. If you're doing it, it should be for fun. Writing is fun. And the person that can really ruin the fun for you is the person that is looking at you in the mirror in the morning.
mm-hmm.
Because if you don't allow yourself the grace and you take the fun away, then why are you writing it? I mean, if you think it's your way to get rich quick, I will deliver some bad news. The chances of that are tough, even no matter how good it is. Publishers now, man, they're not taking much, and you can try to get a literary agent, but they're just looking for certain things, and they want the next great big deal. They don't even want to really take chances on smaller or unpublished authors. So if that's where you're going, if it's for the money, you know, if it's for the fun of it, that's when the success comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's almost like, strangling that thing you want so badly. You hold on tight,
Yeah.
and then it never happens when you let go. Oh.
Yeah.
And people have the most amazing stories too, or they're down on their luck, but they wrote and something wonderful happened because they had to let go. They didn't have a choice,
Well, and for some folks, writing is a good escape. And in that escape, they come up with something awesome that others want to share in.
Yeah.
And that's magic in and of itself, so
Do you think there's a saturation in sort of the literary world or writing world? Or do
here's
you
my
think,
fear. I'll be
yeah,
honest. My fear more is not so much a saturation. It is actually more of a thinning of literary interest, because we were and again, back to my educating world, I'm seeing kids now are different than they were even 10 years ago, because their brains are getting wired differently. And
mm-hmm.
whatever you think, Elon Musk, he did a article on how kids' brains are getting rewired, and everything is about short blurbs of info, because everything is so quick. It's, Twitter based, it's Instagram, it's Insta this, Insta that, and everything is just so quick. So that patience to sit down and actually read,
Yeah.
I feel we're losing. In my school, we have silence. We have free read Friday is what we call it. It's silence sustained reading, whatever you want to do. But we have our kids read on Fridays because they need to be able to sit down, and it's whatever they want, school appropriate, of course, but
Yeah.
they
Right.
but they just to get them reading again, because everything is just quick and instant, and then move on to the next thing, and that sustained thought process. I'm more worried about just losing readers than too much writing coming into the world.
Yeah. It's an interesting place. We're very fortunate. We have kids who love to read.
Yeah, very good.
But that also comes with it's quiet time now. We're going to sit in the house, no TV on, and you really do have to lead by example. I mean, when you have young ones around, for sure, and especially if you're writing while you have children, the best thing you can do is teach them how to sit down. And probably the scariest thing to sit down and be with your thoughts, let alone trying to write.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to do now, because there's the stimulation, like you said, it comes in these bursts, whether, and most of it is negative, but I do believe there are still more good people on this earth. It's just that
Oh
we
yeah.
love a train wreck.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much people just thrive off of negativity, and it's trying to reverse that by reading an amazing book. Two amazing books would be an incredible shift to take your mind out into this wonderful
I
world,
hope.
right? And whether I'm pronouncing the names that you could come up with right, or someone else is pronouncing it the way they think it is, and you're creating this visual. You've created a visual for us to start with, and then you're really visualizing what they're wearing, what they look like, their stature, like, and all the things that come with your own imagination. And I think that is what is so beautiful about what you write. And I feel like this is like that Aquaman sort of, visual, if you will, in both of these books. You get that underwater, and that just the underwater world is fascinating because it's so
Yeah. My issue with
untouched.
Aquaman, as much as I enjoyed it, King Atlas wasn't King Atlan, and Poseidon had 10 sons. There were 5 sets of twins, or 10 sets of twins, and King Atlas was the first king of. So I wish they had read their mythological history before they put that out in Aquaman, but that's my own little
Oh
my
yeah.
own little pet peeve. But yeah,
People love to change the history, so they will adapt it.
but when it's funny when you talk about the names pronunciations, a lot of the names in both books were historic mythologically based, and then other
Nice.
ones were I took family names of either my kids, my wife, my sister. Hey, there is Ariana, which by the way, big character in the second one, in Heir of Atlantis. So
Yes,
she's
I'm in the second book,
Ariana.
everybody.
Yep, Ariana is a huge reason that good things happen at the end. So kudos to you. Great job, by the way, on that.
Thank you. Oops,
Yeah,
there's the mic. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
you are a true heroine.
Thank you very much. I try. I try. Uh, so is there any little secrets that you can give away in both books that would really kind of like, entice readers to go buy the books? Because we like, I know when I'm on days and people are like, what's the teaser? What can you give away? What can so
Yeah.
Sentinels, what's that like?
You know, in Sentinels, there's some really feel good relations, and Drake will befriend the his role as a prime archon of the Sentinels, and the Sentinels are much like the old. I guess I stole a little bit of the concept of the old Jedi, the old Jedi Knights, in the sense that their job was to kind of protect the realm, protect the royal family,
Mm-hmm.
and so Drake befriends them, and so I used his knowledge of and expertise in martial arts, ninjutsu in particular, because I wanted to kind of create this concept that sometimes the human body, the human mind can still overcome technology and superior technology, superior strength, and so there's a little bit of that in there, and through those connections, there's some tragedy. There's some moments where characters don't make it through, who you might be reading thinking, oh, there's no way you kill that character off, but it happens because in reality, tragic events happen, as we know. So in that, and in the end, he has to escape Atlantis, and in order to save the young prince from his uncle. And so how he goes about it, and how he stops Dargon from chasing him down, is kind of a fun little story.
Awesome. Okay. And then what about Heir of Atlantis?
The Heir of Atlantis finds them, Drake and Cyrus, who again, Cyrus was my grandfather's name, so that's like my little tribute to our grandfather.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my parents, our
yeah,
grandfather.
yeah.
I got it.
Um,
That's another podcast.
but but they find out that they have to return to Atlantis, and if not, for what Atlantean technology is based on these small, we call them viral mech, but they're basically small nanites that actually improve their bodies. So they're a little bit physically and intellectually more superior than humans based on these nanites. But because Cyrus was not raised with the ability to control those things, they're getting out of control, and he has to get back to Atlantis, or else his body's basically going to overheat and die.
Mm.
So it's kind of that. And then it's they get in on the wrong side of the continent, and they have to make their way across to where Atlantis is and hope to find their friends. And it's been 13 years, so they don't even know what's going on. And so they meet up with another character who, again, was supposed to be a small little intro character. And the next thing I know, he's like going all the way through the story.
Oh, awesome.
So little teasers, can you figure out which character that
Which
is?
character? Yeah, that's the fun part. You're like, oh, that's the one he was talking about. Incredible. I'm super thrilled for people to check your book out, Amazon.com. And you said you're building a website right now?
Yeah, so we're having one built. We're having I think on Facebook, and I think if it's the publishers are doing a website for the book, and I believe it's toddianzucker.com.
Okay.
I'll get that to you. You can put on your link.
Awesome.
And yeah, so you can get the book off there too.
Okay.
And the other thing I liked about Heir of Atlantis is I was telling you earlier my love of Norse mythology as well. So I actually tied in some Norse mythology
Ooh.
with Greek mythology. So there's some locations and some things in there that like, oh yeah, okay, there's the Norse side of things.
Wow. Yes. I'm seeing a new Game of Thrones here, but in Atlantean style.
That's the third one. I
Yes.
just sat down to started mapping out the trilogy, because Dargon had a son who gets out, and he is going to be the next antagonist.
Ooh. Ooh. And it hits just keep on coming.
That's right. I built
right?
enough in the story to end it after 2, but there's that question mark.
Yeah, which we love. Is it just 2 seasons, or is it going to be 6? We don't know. Right? Yeah. 5 seasons would be like, that's like the perfect amount, or you keep them going after that, whatever, 10 seasons, that works too. But I think you can. I mean, just the first book alone, you've got 2 seasons in that book.
Yeah.
For sure.
So all of you publishers out there, if there are any television producers that would like to get this going,
yeah,
I'm all in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to make it happen. So do you have any other little things you'd like to share with our listeners? Any advice and anything else?
Yeah, advice wise, I would just say this. I was fortunate enough to have some amazing women in my life. I mean, God's got a great sense of humor. I thought I was going to have 3 boys, gave me 3 girls, but they
and a sister.
Yep, and my sis
and your niece.
Yeah. Well, I will say this: my sister's one of my best friends in the world. I've got 3 daughters and a niece who I love to death. They're amazing young ladies. Thank God I had a wife that helped me raise them to help be the great young women that they are. The one thing that I've enjoyed watching, whether it was with you or whether it was with the girls or my wife, is they have a strength, and you guys have a strength that you're able to overcome adversity, and adversity and challenges happen in every day, and they're not always fun and they're not always easy. But if you rely on yourself, and if you have people in your life who you can rely on, just it's that perseverance to just hanging in there. Know that a better day is coming. Might not be today, and it might not be tomorrow, but it's coming if you go the right direction. And and just believe in yourself, believe, and show yourself grace. We use that term a lot, especially when I was coaching baseball, then now softball, because hitting a ball in that sport is predicated on failure. If you hit 3 out of 10, you're good, and anywhere in life, 3 out of 10, you're out.
All right.
So you have to learn how to overcome that failure and show yourself grace so that you can come back and get that hit the next time up. And our society is just so embroiled right now. It's fragmented, but there's still a lot of togetherness. It's just you never hear about it. You always hear about the fringe stuff. Just keep, and just believe that better days are coming for you, for our society we live in, and help others. Because I'll tell you, you can really find great inner value and inner peace when you can provide service to others. That's one thing I've enjoyed with you over the years is the amount of kids we've been able to work with. And can't save them all. I don't know how much good we did on some of them, but I feel like we really gave some of these kids something to enjoy and look at.
Well, and we did, in the program that Todd's talking about is our Heir of Adventure camps, which is still running. Todd created this amazing program, and our executive director is now just continuing its process, and it's still running, and it's still doing huge amounts of value to just shy of 20 kids for the year. And nonprofit takes a lot of funding, but the fact that we're getting it and we're helping at least 18 kids a year, somewhere between 15 and 18 kids a year, that's 15 to 18 kids that didn't have it in the first place. So it's whatever you can do. It's not how big you do it, it's how effective you can do it. So I really appreciate that. I remember in 2007, what did I say to you? I want to do more, Todd. I don't know what to do. I want to do more. I love giving back. I want to, so.
And there we went.
Out came Heir of Adventure camps. Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm so happy that it's still moving. So this has been an incredible journey.
And if you have dreams or things that you want to do it. Find a way. 20 something years ago, or maybe almost 30 years ago now, I wanted to fly, and I was trying to get my private license, and it was way too expensive and whatnot. And so on this side of my life, I decided to go back and do it. And I think in a month I go take my FAA check ride, and I should hopefully be a licensed pilot by this summer. And it's not cheap. And here's how I've done good, but I've allowed good to help me, because I donated a lot of plasma over the years.
Oh, gee.
And I use that to help pay for the flight stuff. And
there you go.
You find a way. If you really want to do something, you find a way.
Yes. When you persevere and you get through the hard stuff, and you know what? God wants you, whether you believe in God, whether you believe which universe or energy or however it comes for you in that higher power process, the universe wants you to have things, and they put things in the way to see if you're ready. And if you can't get through those hard times, then you weren't ready for it yet. And I truly believe that, because all the things personally that I've gone through and that I'm working through to still get to my goal, I see those hard spots, or those, I don't know what to do now. Try everything. Try everything. That's the whole point, is you got to try it, and you got to keep failing, because failing is success. And I'm going to flip this word around. Failure is success. So, because it makes you think, and it makes you try harder, and it keeps you moving forward. Do not give up. It's an interesting thing too, when you're writing or you're starting a business, or, 2 years into it, let's say you don't finish your book in 2 years. A lot of people can just throw their hands up in the air and be like, oh gosh, forget it. I'm not going to write. But it takes it seems to be that the 2-year mark of when you start something, you're either, let's just face it, you shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean?
It comes down to.
So you really do. You have to make that effort, and you have to keep trying. Unless yes, of course, sometimes when we make financial mistakes and you have to end something, it depends on where you are and the choices that you make. But that doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you succeeded in trying.
Right.
So anyway, I'm so proud of you, Todd, for taking the time and all the success that's come towards you. And success is in your heart. It is Some people want to call it your pocketbook, but I believe it's in your heart, and that's when you succeed, and that's when things shift in your life. So
It's true.
yeah,
Very
and
true.
you've done some incredible things. So thank you so much for being on. I'm actually really looking forward to our next podcast, because that one's going to be a little deeper, little more
Yeah.
stuff going on. But you're still very inspiring. You have 3 beautiful girls that just have done extraordinary, or are doing extraordinary things in their life now. I have the 3 sweetest nieces on the planet, and they couldn't be kinder. And
They
it's
take after their mother.
they take after their mother. And thank you, Shonda, for being such an incredible and inspiring woman, that you've inspired my brother to be an awesome man. So, it takes a team, right? It takes 2 for sure, but she does put up with a lot, but
Now the worst part is with her new promotion. Now she's my boss at home. So I have no escapes. I got to write again just to escape that.
there you go. Congratulations to my sister-in-law. Woo! That's fantastic. Well,
I'm proud of her. She's earned it. She's worked hard. She's sugar mama.
You got to use a sugar mama. Nothing wrong with that. Well, so again, if you want, you have to get Sentinels of Atlantis and the sequel, Heir of Atlantis, on Amazon.com. And your name on the book isn't it Ian?
Ian. Yeah, my
No, it's just Ian.
Zucker,
Yeah.
Yep,
Ian Zucker is his writing name, not his stage name, his writing name.
Yes.
So please check it out, and I'll get a confirmation. I'll put it in our show notes, but I think it's toddyandzucker.com. Don't quote me on that yet. I will put it in the show notes, and you can check. Well, you're listening to it. You're probably going to see the show notes. Okay. Anyway, but it would do. Anyway, and if you get a chance to give us a thumbs up, remember, I'm not interested in thumbs down, so don't even worry about checking the thumbs down if you didn't like the podcast. So just a thumbs up. Okay. I really do appreciate it, because your likes help me keep this show going. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time, everybody. And Todd, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Hopefully we'll be on our boats.
So not a year and a half, a couple weeks.
Not a year and a half. Let's do the next couple of weeks for sure. And we'll get into some education conversation. I'm sure this is gonna be a good one. Yeah. You want a train wreck? Let's talk education. There you go. There's your train wreck. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And until next time, see you later.